Oh, hello. I seem to have got very blown up. Hang on a moment. I just need to make an adjustment here. Just bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. Something unusual has happened to the camera. I have to do this live, I'm afraid. You're not supposed to see this, but good afternoon anyway. It's because I've been doing some tests with the... There we go, that's better. You don't want to see me that close, warts and all. Anyway, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a live... It's all live, isn't it, these things? Yes, it's another book reading, and of course we're reading our On Southern British Roads, which is a terrific book by James John Hissey. And we'll be reading, what chapter will we be reading now? It's chapter 4, and I'm very much looking forward to that. Sorry, I've just got to scratch my foot because it's itchy. Put my slipper back on. Completely unprepared today. I am prepared, but things are going a bit awry. Anyway, welcome on. I hope everything's okay. You can hear me all right and all the rest of it. Let's say a few hellos to a few people who've dropped in. The lovely Julia, hello to you. Michael White, nice to see you. Ben Reeve, Turbo Stream, Justine Jones, Linda Kane, James Poulton. Thank you for your donation, by the way, James. Audrey Forbes, Billabong O'Neill, Turbo Stream, Philip Hammond and Mary. I've got the burgundy on today, Mary, and it's very nice. Nigel Sadler, finally got through the adverts to get here. What do you mean adverts? Are there adverts on this? Do they put adverts on before it goes out on the live? That's ridiculous. And Abidel Rosario, The Polar Express by Chris Van Allsburg. Thanks. Is that a suggestion? And Ed Loud, good afternoon to you. And anybody else who hasn't typed in to the thing. Actually, I need to put that on Total Chat instead of Top Chat. Top Chat, he's the leader of the gang, just in case there's a few more bits and pieces in there. Great. Before we get going, am I a bit loud? I think I might be just occasionally a bit loud. Couple of things. First of all, I don't know if Jean Blemmings is out there live or as we watch, but I wanted to thank her for this card here, which has arrived with a lovely donation. Thank you very much to the cause. But she mentions in the card that she sent, there is a dog cart in the back. And of course, our heroes are travelling by dog cart, and that's a sort of thing. I have a feeling it's probably a bit bigger and a bit more plush than that, but it's that sort of thing. I don't know where those houses are. Oh, thank you for watching. It's all happening. Is it Monday? Does it say here where it is? That's in Selborne, the Plestor, early 20th century. Selborne. There we go. And didn't we read Selborne the other day? I can't remember. Selborne kept coming up. Oh, Gilbert White. He keeps coming up. So anyway, thank you very much to Jean. Also, do you remember? I wonder if Lee Lawson is with us. Oh, hello to Paul Vernon and to House of Babish. Oh, I'll have to listen to bloody what's her name? Not Kylie Simon. What's her name? The Heathcliff and Mariette and Heath. What's her name? Oh, I can never remember her sodding name. You know, the one who was Heathcliff and who was the one who was with Heath? I can't remember it. I can't remember anything. It's amazing I managed to do anything. In the book, anyway, Lee Lawson I was looking for. John F., hello. Michael White, hello. Andrew Norris, hello. And the Green Man, hello. Babushka. There we are, Babushka. It came back to me. We saw this, I can't find it now. We saw this interesting cottage. Oh, here it is. Don't lose your place or we'll never get cracking. We saw this interesting not cottage, that's barely a cottage, is it? There we go, look at that. And we wondered where that was and where it could be. Kate Bush, thank you very much. Yes, Kate Bush. I am hopeless. I am absolutely hopeless. But never mind. Now, Lee Lawson was, I think it was Lee Lawson. I'm going to kill myself if I do this wrong. I think it was Linda Kane, wasn't it? It was Linda Kane. Sorry, I nearly attributed this to somebody else. Linda Kane has been on the trail of where that is, because he doesn't mention it in there. And it's suggested that it was Snape House in Wadhurst. Now, I don't think Wadhurst is anywhere near where it was. And Linda sent me some pictures. Let's see. I mean, these aren't particularly brilliantly large pictures, so I don't know how you're going to be able to see them. But that's one of them. And the other picture is, oh, that's even titchier. Sorry, these are tiny. I can't blow them up any bigger, I don't think. Oh, wait a minute. I wonder if isn't there a thing? Here we go, look. There we go. That's, now there's a lot of difference between that picture. I've lost the original now. I don't want to lose that. There's a lot of difference, but I think it's artistic license. And actually, I believe Linda said she had it confirmed. That and that. So that's the picture that he drew. And I think the sketcher was actually James John Hissey himself. And that's the house as is. So it's fascinating. Fascinating. Thank you very much, Linda, for doing that work. How brilliant is that? Right, let me get out of this if I can. And go back to that. There we go. We got some semblance of order here. Not much, but some. Anyway, that's my country pile, says Michael White. Yes, sorry. We just sneaked in there at the weekend and took the picture. Thank you so much, Linda, for doing that. And in your email, you do actually say, where is it? Just quickly do this because we're over time now. It was confirmed by someone who spoke to the granddaughter of the people who live there. The house has been divided into two in recent years. She said some artistic license has been used in the position of the folly in the garden, which could be a dovecot, having been moved closer to the house in the illustration. All the main features are there and a couple of pictures are attached. So brilliant stuff. Linda says the author drew all the illustrations, got help from an East Sussex Facebook page. It elicited about 300 comments. Golly, I wish we'd had 300 people watching. That would be great. But how brilliant. So thank you so much, Linda, for doing that. There are more pictures in the book. Well, Linda knows because she's got herself a copy of the book. And now, nervously, I shall be reading the book and she's reading along, which always puts me off because you can see all the errors I make. And I try and sort of go over them smoothly. Anyway, we're on chapter 4, ladies and gentlemen. If you are sitting comfortably, I will begin. Strangely enough, there is no carriage road to Isfield Church. It stands alone, surrounded by fields and well away from the village. Oh yes, this is right. This was it Nicholas Culpeper? I believe Nicholas Culpeper grew up in Isfield before he went to London. And I visited the church, and there is a tarmacked or metalled road up to it now. But I guess back in this time, it was probably just a track. The only approach thereto is by footpaths. At the porch, we noticed a huge iron scraper, and close by, what the lad called foot brooms. These consisted of big bundles of twigs, somewhat resembling small faggots, set on the end at the bottom of wooden posts for people to wipe their feet on. You gets mighty muddy a walking to the church in wet weather. Fortunately for us, the day was very fine and the field paths fairly dry, but we could easily imagine a very different state of affairs in the winter-time. Then, possibly the big scraper or the foot brooms are necessary. Yes, I can imagine they are necessary. The lovely Julia, of course, loves her boot scrapers. Entering the church, we discovered that it contained a private chapel on the south side, known as the Shirley Chapel. The walls of this are partially panelled with oak, finely carved with the linen pattern, that is a design descended to represent folded linen decoratively treated. Oh. There was also some old, slightly altered to suit circumstances. There was also some old... Sorry, I skipped over 2 pages. I thought that didn't make sense. There were also... Linda's going, what? What are you talking about? That's not in my book. There was also some old private family pews of oak similarly carved, but alas, much worm-eaten. The rest of the walls are covered with brasses and monuments to the Shirley family, one being a magnificent, not to say ostentatious, altar tomb with an exceedingly laudatory inscription to Sir John Shirley, but of this anon. The more ancient brasses claimed our first attention. These are fixed on the walls and set in stone slabs on the floor, as was the general custom. The earliest brass is to John Shirley, deceased 1527. Another 16th century one is to Edward Shirley, who departed this mortal life, XV1, I'll let you work that out, day of March, XV1, well that's the 16th of March, anno 19, not 19, something. Linda Kane's got the book. You can work out what that is. In Roman numerals, MCCCCC, CLV111, something 8. Who knows? And Joanne, his wife, departed the same day, who, God rest their souls, pardon and between God, sent them 3 sons and 1 daughter. This brass has over the inscription... Stop it. This brass has over the inscription a representation of the said Edward Shirley, standing upright and in full armour. His wife is shown standing opposite to him. Linda says, haven't got the book open at the mo, so you're safe. Oh, and don't call me Shirley, says Michael White. There's a footpath, says Linda, that runs beside Snape House. So anyone in the area... Oh, yeah, take a picture. In Wadsworth. Where is Wadsworth? I was trying to place where Wadsworth was without looking in the map. Anyway, so, yeah, he was... his wife is opposite him. It is noticeable that where the date of the husband's death is duly inserted, that of his wife is left blank. Presumably this brass was engraved after the death of Edward Shirley, but before his wife deceased. Hence the date of the latter event was left vacant to be filled in hereafter. And clearly it wasn't filled in. It's interesting. I've seen, I don't know if you've seen that when you've gone round churches. Sometimes these things are left blank and you think, well, what? And, you know, you look at it and it's somebody, they died 1732 and you think, right, and your wife is there, but your wife can't still be living because they haven't filled in. They just couldn't be bothered to fill in the plaque. On many of these ancient brasses, similar spaces may be found blank. Sometimes this was due to neglect, more frequently from the want at the time of a skilled craftsman. For putting aside the art required, the lettering thereon. The genuine old brasses were of composite metal, very hard and enduring, and consequently most difficult to engrave. Many of them, as may be proved by trial, will resist the blade of a pocket knife so successfully, indeed, that it will not even make a scratch thereon, try you ever so hard. Possibly, most frequently of all, remarriage would account for the spaces remaining vacant. Oh, well, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. So the woman may have remarried somebody else and actually be buried in a different grave. So that's interesting, isn't it? Still another interesting brass is to Thomas Shirley. This bears the date of 1579. A modern brass of 1867 that is inserted on the adjoining wall contrasts very unfavourably with the ancient work of a like kind, the wording of it is even now hardly so legible. The letters of black, varied with red, look mechanical and feelingless. They sadly want character. The brass fails because of being too perfect and precise in the cutting, and from want of a spirit and boldness in treatment. There is such a thing as inconsistent refinement. The colour of the modern metal, too, is dull and cheerless. It is entirely devoid of the deep, rich tint of most old brasses. That's interesting. I think that's an interesting observation when things are done, particularly for things like marriages, births and deaths and things that have a sentimental value, that are mechanically cut. As he says, it is therefore too perfect and in want of spirit. The art of making the composite metal for what is known as brasses appears to be a lost one. During the period when this form of memorial to the dead was in its prime, all the best metal for brasses was manufactured in the Netherlands and imported into England. In those pre-patent days, the process was kept a profound secret. The demand then for the metal in this country outran the supply, and sad to relate, as many a palimpsest brass will show, the already engraved brasses were uplifted from their place on tomb slabs to be engraved on the other side afresh. In some cases, even the original figure was audaciously left as it was, or but slightly altered to suit the circumstances, and merely a new inscription placed beneath. Oh, for the honest days of old! How outrageous! And who's to know? Who would have known? Google says that date is invalid. Input, says Linda Kane. Oh, is it? M1. How many C's have you got there? 4, 5 C's. How many C's did I say? Are you just taking what I said? I wouldn't take what I said. I probably missed it all out. Oh, yeah, it is 5 C's. LV 111. Well, this was written before Google was alive, so Google doesn't know everything. The monument to St. John Shirley is surely a different affair from the unassuming yet effective brasses that suffice for his more modest ancestors. His memorial is truly magnificent. It is of finely carved marble and occupies considerable space in the chapel. Beneath the canopy, this knight is represented in a recumbent alabaster armoured effigy of full life size, with 2 wives, one on each side of him. But 2 wives? Blimey. Below are the sculptured figures of his 2 sons and 7 daughters in long array. The inscription on this monument is quite a curiosity in tomb eulogy. The particulars of Sir John Shirley, his wives, family, ancestors, and his many personal virtues appear on a space at the top and are complete in themselves. Beneath, in another space divided from it, is the record of this great man's death. We judge from the foregoing and from other details that this monument, with its laudatory inscription, was erected in the lifetime of Sir John Shirley, and doubtless was ordered and approved by him. There is one thing to be said on behalf of this exemplary knight. If he praises himself, he doesn't begrudge the meed of praise to his second wife. Here is the inscription. Note that some of his children were called to heaven, and others into several marriages of good quality. This caps another inscription that we came upon later onto the memory of a brave squire whose 6 daughters all found themselves husbands. And here is the inscription for what it's worth, and I will attempt to read. I'm not reading terribly well today, but I'll attempt this. Thy ye fame of Sir John Shirley of Isfield, in ye county of Sussex, knight, may he previous in ye memory of all men, till ye change of ye last man. Be it delivered to posterity that Sir John Shirley was of an ancient family, of a magnanimous heart, of an exemplary industry, of a lustness beyond exception, and that he was stout in good causes. Ye, O good of all causes. His first wife was daughter unto Thomas Shirley of Wiston, knight, by whom he had 2 sons and 7 daughters. Ye sons, I guess ye is 1, isn't it? 1 son and 2 daughters are called to heaven, and the 5, or maybe it's the 5 living into several marriages of good quality. His second wife was widow of Sir Henry Bower of Cookfield, in the county of Sussex, a knight. She was a Marite. I don't know what that means. She was a Marite beyond most of her time, for her purse was open to the prophet's name. Her pity was the clothing of the poor. Her piety, the mother of her practice. Her devotions were her daily offerings to God, her mercy against some condemnation, and her minutes were but steps to heaven. Yeah, I'm not good on those, clearly. Beneath the inscription, in another space, we learn this paragon of all the virtues. Deceased at Lewes, the 25th of April, Anno Domini 1631. At the foot of the monument, the 2 sons and the 7 daughters are represented in carved alabaster. They are shown as kneeling. They have their hands together in an attitude of prayer, with the exception of the 2 sons and the 2 daughters, who each hold a skull in their hands, a rather gruesome way of showing that they were dead at the time. Well, one would hope that when they were buried, they were dead. I know sometimes the live can get buried, but that's not ideal. The dress of the daughters struck us as being most artistic, and I only wish that so grateful a style of apparel for girls could be revived. It is sensible and decidedly picturesque. Over the heads of the children, their names were inserted in numbered order. 1, Anne, 2, Thomas, 3, John, 4, Jane, 5, Cicely, 6, Elizabeth, 7, Charlie, 8, Hannah, and 9, Maria. Not the Black Maria, but Maria. I do not remember another instance where the names of the children are recorded on a monument to their parents thus. We noticed a large squint at the side of this chapel, so that the quality, as represented by the Shirley family, could see the altar and officiating priest without being themselves seen by the mere vulgar worshippers in the nave. But proud knight and plain plebeian are now one and common dust. Yes, I bet they are. Another Shirley, that grand old lyric writer, so finely put it, "The glories of our blood and state are shadows, not substantial things. There is no armour against fate. Death lays his icy hands on kings. Sceptre and crown must tumble down, and in the dust be equal made with the poor crooked scythe and the spade." Charles I used often to repeat this verse aloud when in prison, and whilst repeating it, how sadly he must have felt the truth expressed herein. Charles I, if he failed in the great poise of a tyrant, succeeded perfection in that of a martyr. From Misfield to Uckfield our road led us through the thickly wooded country, which in the gloaming looked enchanting. Gloaming, in the gloaming. Does he mean the gloom light? Is that what gloaming is? In which the gloaming looked enchanting with all its leafy beauty. We observed, as we went along, a quantity of sturdy oaks among the trees. In the days of the old 3-deckers, this district was famous for the quantity and quality of timber it supplied for the dockyards. And by 3-deckers, I imagine, is he talking about the old galleon ships in the days of the 3-deckers? A last century traveller, Daniel Defoe, proceeding from Tunbridge to Lewes in 1724, who passed through this locality, writes of it in a tour through Great Britain. "The timber I saw there was prestigious, as well as quantity as bigness, and it seemed in some places to be suffered to grow only because it was so far off any navigation that it was not worth cutting down and carrying away. In the dry summers, indeed, a great deal is carried away, and sometimes I've seen one tree on a carriage drawn by 22 oxen, and even then it is carried so little away that it is sometimes 2 or 3 years before it gets to Chatham. For if once the rains come on, it stirs no more that year, and sometimes a whole summer is not hot enough to make the roads passable." Writing of the bad state of the Sussex roads in the past, the following extract, which we took from an old volume we came upon during the journey, may be interesting, for it tells its own story. In the year 1728, a Sussex lady dying in Kent left directions in her will for her interment at Brighton. If she should die at such a time of year as the roads hereto were passable. Her death occurring in June, her wish was complied with. Well, perhaps there is the reverse to the mettle of the good old road-travelling days, at any rate in Sussex, for the bad ways and sprinkling of the highwayman must have taken a good deal away of the pleasure from a driving tour in these parts then. There are many advantages in being born late in the 19th century. Sorry, I'm reading so atrociously today. I don't know why. I'm struggling. Time ever throws a halo of romance around the past. Even in the heyday of the coaching age, there were writers who looked longingly back to the merry times gone by. And so it may come to pass that in a century or so hence, our descendants will sigh for the good old railway days. It's funny, I mean, he's writing 120 years ago, and we are a bit thinking about that. I think how the railways were prompt, how the railway porters were courteous, how luxurious the railway carriages were, how much smoke was belching out into your face. Gloaming, says the lovely Julia, from the Scottish dialects of English in the Middle Ages, the roots of the word trace to the Old English word for twilight, which is akin, gloam, which is akin to glowen, the Old English to glow. Her'd be glowing out there. Oh, did you say Scottish? Aye, it's a gloaming night tonight, Mrs. Light. You buying a toaster? From the Scottish Daleks. Oh, yes, the Scottish Daleks. Exterminate me, old darling. No, that's not Scottish. I either knew I am a Dalek from Scotland, okay? You will be exterminated. Very high-pitched Dalek. Let's not get into the Daleks. We arrived late in the evening at Uckfield, just as the light was fading out of the landscape and the sky was growing from gold to grey, the very hour when all places look their best. But even so, Uckfield did not impress us. It is of the order of one-street towns whose thoroughfare is long drawn out. Possibly it may have been owing to the sharp contrast of the lovely country and picturesque spots that we'd seen that day, but Uckfield struck us as an ugly little town, not when viewed by the garish light of the following morning. Was our first impression changed? Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Nor when viewed by the garish light of the following morning was our first impression changed. It's a nice place, Uckfield. I like it's on a bit of a hill. If you're at the north end, you start coming down the hill. It's very quaint. Clearly, he was not impressed. So that's, it's interesting. I suppose because if he's writing at the turn of the century, there's a lot of you've got to remember, I suppose, a lot of towns then would have had very recent new builds of Victorian terraces and villas and things from 1840s with railways and that sort of thing. which is a feature actually of tomorrow's video. But there would have been a lot of very new looking. These buildings will look new and fresh, I'm guessing. So he may not have been impressed by that, just as we are not very impressed by the new builds. Wadhurst is 19 miles, says Linda Kane, from Lawton, which he was in the book. Yes. Which direction, east or west, north or south? Thank you for looking that up, by the way. That was about half an hour ago, but hey-ho. I'm not complaining. It's fascinating to know. So he thought it was an ugly town. What fails to please the critical eye in the tender, poetic gloaming seldom profits by the searching sunshine. The somewhat singular title of Uckfield is probably evolved from Oakfield, or at least we saw the name spelt Oaky Field on an ancient map, and oaks, that weed of Sussex, still abounds in the country around. That's interesting because I always thought it came from the River Uck, which is close by, but Uck and oak could well be that could well be a thing, and the weed of Sussex was indeed the oak, so it's true there. Truth to tell, Uckwood is, at the best, an intensely uninteresting town set in the midst of a charming, pretty and well-wooded country. We turned our footsteps towards the church, trusting that there might be something to interest us, some bit of medieval work made doubly beautiful by the weather tinting of the centuries. But even the church failed us. Suffice to say, it was rebuilt from the foundations in the year of grace, but truly not of taste, 1840. However, one of the worthy inhabitants of the place, at least I presume he was a worthy one, said he considered the church a very beautiful building, quite an ornament to the town. I hate your high art churches, I do. This quite settled us. We had not said a word. Wait, I hate your high heart churches, I do. This is a quote. This quite settled us. We had not a word to say. We did not worship there. What affair was it of ours? But exactly what a high art church is, he failed to explain, simply muttering as he turned away something about musty, fusty, damp, dirty old buildings. I can't abide them. As we never asked whether he could or not, his remarks were scarcely polite or to the point. But one meets strange creatures, or even characters, on the road, sometimes crusty ones too, but they all interest us. It is the people as well as the places one comes upon that lends a special charm to such devious wanderings as ours, out of the beaten track of tourist travel. Such quaint and original characters are a blessed relief after the monotony of the multitudes that throng the modern cities, and are refreshing to the town-tired eye and brain, as is the summer shower to the parched and thirsty soil. Perhaps I'm a little unjust to Uckfield. In truth, I must acknowledge that at the foot of the long street there does stand a real old cottage, a bridge cottage it's called, with a small garden and a big tree in the front. And this cottage might even form the subject of a passably pretty sketch, granted a little dodging. But one cottage does not make a town. Linda Kane has just gone to answer a phone call. Maybe we should just wait. Can we eavesdrop in? Is it the council? Come for their council tax, I wonder. Nigel Sandler says some of the signs around Uckfield, particularly the one of the River Uck, are curiously shaped to leave little space in front of the U. Can't think why. I don't know what you mean by that. What Uck Duck? Why would you... What? But so that you can't turn it into an O to make it into Oakfield. Can't imagine, says Linda Kane. It is still here today, says John F. It is still there today. What's still there? What? Yes, I read that. Phone call. I'm back. Oh, good. So hush. All right. Okay. Sorry, we were listening in to the taxman demanding from the HMRC. It's a fraud, by the way. I wouldn't take any notice of him. I really think that the best bit of Uckfield, in a picturesque point of view, was the stable yard of our hotel. He hasn't got much of a good word to say about Uckfield, has he? The buildings ranged around this were irregular and time-painted with various hues in pleasing harmony. Moreover, these little considered outbuildings grouped together well. They were happily too unimportant to be considered worthy to be improved or altered up to date. There is a great safeguard in humbleness, so that the cottage escapes unharmed, whilst the grand cathedral, an old historic church, is restored out of recognition. The fatal gift of fame has been their undoing. On the evening of our arrival, this stable yard looked quite charming, as partially revealed by the lightings from the carriage lamps, which caused deep, mysterious shadows, and just afforded a suggestion of old gables, bent roofs, and crooked chimneys. Things half seen thus lend some scope for the imagination. The mind, delighted to be free for a while from positive facts, conjures up to itself all sorts of pleasant and picturesque possibilities, regardless, for the moment, of the disenchantment that it knows from past similar experiences is almost certain to follow. If our poetic dreams could only be converted by some magic into the realities, what a lovely world this might be. Well, I don't know. It would also be quite a hideous world, knowing what some people have in their brains. On going to look after the welfare of our horses in the morning, we discovered an artist in the stable yard with his easel set up in front of him, busy at work on a picture of a horse, the landlord's horse, he told us. The ancient buildings formed an excellent and effective background to this. What are the chances of that happening, eh? Now we can never see an artist at work without being attracted to him. Some painters resent such intrusions. Others are only too delighted to have the opportunity of a chat with a kindred spirit, and of the latter sort was our artist. So we had a long and pleasant chat together. We gleaned from our conversation that he had begun his career in London with much promise, but loving the country much and hating town and its ways still more, and lacking the refined art of pushing his wares upon the public, not caring to curry favour with the picture dealers, he elected to enjoy his life according to his own ideas. I know what you mean, mate. I'm with you there. So, provided with a good supply of canvases, colours and a little cash, he set forth one fine summer morning on a country outing, determined to paint his way along somehow. He would rather live on the proverbial crust of bread and cheese in the country than fare sumptuously in town. So he tramped hither and thither, chance-led, accepting such commissions as he could get, now painting a gentleman's hunter, his house, his cattle, or anything that was his, or a pack of hounds, or a farmer and his wife, or whatever else might offer, frequently getting his quarters free whilst at work. And so one way and another he managed to get along very well in the summer-time. Luckily, he never failed to get commissions, at a price. Then he thoroughly enjoyed his wandering life, nor envied he his fellow academy student who had remained on in London, striving and struggling after fame with such worldly success that he had built himself a fine studio with a house attached. We liked that remark. It was fraught with meaning, and had become a real live R.A. What is R.A.? I don't know what that means. An R.A., real artist? He mentioned the familiar name of one of his fortunes he mentioned the familiar name of this fortune's favourite to us, but needless to repeat it here. Our artist friend enjoyed excellent health. The free country life just delighted him. His wants were few. He had indeed all he needed, and was thoroughly happy. And even an R.A., whatever R.A. is, with commissions galore and a fat balance at his bankers, could not be more than that. Anybody know what R.A. stands for? Andrew Norris must know. Royal Academy, is it? Oh, Royal Academy. Oh, I see. Very, very posh, I suppose. Royal Academy. Don't you know? Don't you know? I'm Royal Academy. Are you? Yes, I am. What does that mean? I have no idea. It means the Queen said something about it at once in a passing moment. Oh, really? What sort of thing did she say? She said, I detest everything at the Royal Academy. Is that what she said? Yes, I believe so. Having consulted our maps and road book over the night, we decided to proceed next to Tunbridge Wells, going first to Buxton and then on by Crowborough and Erridge to our destination. The morning turned out gloriously fine, so, as usual, under such favourable circumstances, we made an early start in order to have a long day before us for our explorations. A short and pleasant drive of 3 miles or so brought us to Buxton, a sleepy little village, but erst a busy centre of the Sussex iron industry. Now, the country around is quite Arcadian in its pastoral peacefulness. Here, adjoining Buxton Deer Park, stands an ancient building, one of the residents of the Hogg family, and still retaining their rebus, a rudely sculptured figure of a hog over the doorway with the date of 1581. This ancient home is locally known by the not very euphonious title of the Hog House. It is recorded that a member of this family, one Ralph Hogg, an iron master, made the first cast iron cannon in England at his furnace some 3 miles away. This spot is still marked on the ordnance map of today as Huggett's Furnace. Nigel Sadler, go forth and check. He's good on the old Ordnance Survey maps. Prior to this, all English cannons were constructed of iron bars put together in the form of a tube and bound round by strong hoops of that metal. The name Huggett is said to be a corruption of hog. Whether tradition be right or not in this respect, I cannot say. An old Sussex couplet has it, Master Huggett and his man John, they did cast the first cannon. Another edition substitutes the name Hogg for Huggett. Still another reads, Master Huggett and his son John between them cast the first cannon. During this period, and for long afterwards, Sussex manufactured a quantity of excellent cannon, so excellent that it was much desired by our enemies. And there were men unpatriotic enough, even in those patriotic days, to sell and smuggle a number of them to our ancient foes, the French. When one of the Sussex ironmasters was taken to task for knowingly supplying cannons for this purpose, he exclaimed, Whatever does it matter? We get the Frenchman's money, and when we fight, we get the guns back again. Very clever. Whilst taking a photograph in the village, which unfortunately are not printed in this book, we noticed a clergyman coming along the road, and it struck us that we would take the opportunity to ask him if the church was worth seeing. And that's an interesting concept, isn't it? It's the same as saying to somebody when you buy a car or something, and you say, "What do you think? Is this any good? This car?" They're not going to. No, this car's a load of old rubbish. You don't want to buy from me. You want to buy from my competitor down the road. He's much nicer than me. He's got much nicer cars. Of course, the clergyman's going to say it's a nice church. Surely, he's not going to go. You don't want to come and visit my church, mate. No, it's just rubbish. Rubbish. Well, there's a lot of dead people in the bloody graves all around, and there's nobody sitting in the pews. It's cold, damp, dark, miserable. You don't want to come to my church. Go and find your own church. But let's see what happens. What does he say? As Buxton was an important place of old, it seems probable that the church might reflect some of its past prosperity. And what did the clergyman say? There's nothing of special interest in it, he said, in reply to our query. Oh, it just proves you, doesn't it? But it is worth the walk there through the park for the sake of the view from the churchyard. If you care to see inside, the key is kept at the post office, but I don't know whether they'll let strangers in. We don't like strangers here. We thanked the clergyman for his information, and as the post office chanced to be close by, we thought it worth the trouble of asking for the keys, even at the risk of a refusal. As a matter of fact, however, we have never once been declined access to any church in England, in any part of England or Wales, that we have desired to see during the many years of home travel. Indeed, sometimes I think that as utter strangers, we've been more than once rather rashly entrusted with the keys of certain ancient fanes. We know fanes is like an ancient building or what was the temple or religious place or that sort of thing, wherein were rare old brasses, some small and loose, and could easily be removed by the daring collector, whose ideas of meum et tuum are not quite always what they should be. I don't know what meum et tuum is, but probably leave them where they are. Let's just see how we've got a fair bit of journey to the next chapter. Yes. Inquiring at the post office, not only were the keys at once handed to us, but an apology was made for keeping the church doors locked. You see, sirs, were we to leave them open, the children would get inside and play there, you see. This did not speak well for the Buxton children, and it seemed to us a curious remark, considering the fact that in so many parts of England we have found the church doors always open, and the buildings nearly always forsaken, even by worshippers. Englishmen keep their religion strictly for Sundays. Why should it be safe to have the church open all day long in some portions of the country and not in others? The question naturally occurs to us, but we could not answer it. Buxton Park is a fine domain, with glorious old trees and broad sweeps of green turf suggestive of vast spaces. Set in the midst of it is an ugly classical mansion of the style of that former generation deemed in such perfect taste for a noble country residence. A countryman we met told us that there was a window in it for every day of the year, and this fact, if it is a fact, seemed to impress him, and even appeared astonished that we did not seem impressed by it. But we have heard this story so many times in so many houses that it's become rather stale. Fancy estimating the merit of a building by the number of windows it contains. I wonder whether the window tax was in existence when the mansion was built. Still, to this day, one may occasionally note in rural places windows built up to escape this iniquitous tax on air and light, and that, since its repeal, have been allowed to remain so. I was looking over the rambling old farmhouse one day, and the farmer pointed out to me 2 block spaces where windows were before this now forgotten tax was imposed. These were not replaced on account of the cost, and because we've learnt to do without them very well, so we don't bother about the matter, though maybe I'll put them in again some day when farming's a bit more profitable. My father made a little fortune at farming, but I can barely get a living at it. A footpath across the park led us to the church, which we found situated on the elevation, surrounded by the pleasant park and divided from it by a low stone wall, over which the tame deer peered at us, as though wondering what a stranger could be doing there. From the churchyard, in which is a very fine and flourishing old yew tree, we looked down upon a richly wooded prospect, though the view was of no great extent. We found some children playing a noisy game of hide-and-seek and others chasing each other merrily over the tombstones, unmindful of the underlying dead. The thoughtless gaiety and joyousness of the youth recked little of the solemnity of death. Perhaps, after all, it was well that the church was not left open, for as the God's acre appeared to form some form of village playground, the sacred edifice itself might be invaded in time. Coming to the north porch, our attention was arrested by its time-worn appearance. In the gable over this is a curious bit of sculpture representing a woman in an old-fashioned churn. No, not in an old-fashioned churn. Who said that? Wasn't me. An old woman with an old-fashioned churn, in the gable over this curious bit of sculpture representing a woman with an old-fashioned churn, with small doubt the rebus of the Alchorn family, who gave largely to the church and may have probably have built... Sorry, sometimes I can't read a sentence, or I can't get how the sentence is. In the gable over this curious bit of sculpture representing a woman with an old-fashioned churn, with small doubt the rebus of the Alchorn family, who gave largely to the church, and may well probably have built on this very... The sentence doesn't have an ending. In the spandrels below, on either side, is an armed figure, carved in stone and holding his hands a shield. A recess on the shield would lead one to imagine that a coat of arms was originally inserted here, possibly of iron, for we saw one in situ on a former journey. This is, however, a somewhat rare arrangement, for coats of arms were generally carved direct on the stone, and the departure from such a usual and convenient custom is hard to account for. The figures are much weather-worn, and their age is difficult to estimate. It is a bit boring when he goes into the churches and, well, it is for me, I don't know about you, and starts just sort of waxing lyrical for ages about the things that we can't really see or understand. Entering the church, we discovered some interesting old brasses, but no altar tombs. The wealthy ironmasters who appear to have been contented with modest memorials to themselves. We were surprised to find no iron tomb slabs here, as exists at Mayfield and in other parts of Sussex that boasted of the foundries. This struck us as singular. Just beneath the chancel arch, we came upon a quaintly worded brass. No, we didn't. A quaintly. I'm gonna stop in a minute because I'm just failing my reading. I'm just finding a convenient place to stop, and we'll pick it up tomorrow. And I apologise for that. I'm just stumbling too many times, and I'm not enjoying it. This struck us as singular. Beneath the chancel arch, we came upon a quaintly worded brass, unfortunately without a date. The lettering of this is puzzling and difficult to make out. A difficulty that was added to by the bad light at the time we were there. I believe, however, the following to be a correct rendering of it. Here lieth graven, under thy stoon, a fore savage both flesh and boon. Robert, him's son, was personeer, more than XX11111 ear. Christ, Goddy's son, born of a maid, to X4 and Robert Im's stone given aid, that thou of thy world past for, I can't bloody read this anymore. X4 is, I believe, short for Christopher. Yeah, well, how would anyone know that? It is curious that there should be no date to this inscription. At least we could find no trace of one. Perhaps, of course... person, blah, blah, blah. The priest in the old times are often known as the person of a place, possibly because he was often the most important dweller therein. Another ancient brass in the chancel has the representation of a copied priest. No, a copt. Do you know, I'm going to stop because I cannot read it and it's driving me mad. occasionally I have these flounts of fancy, so I'm going to flaunt off because I just can't make head nor tail of it. I am enjoying the book, don't get me wrong, and there's a hell of a long way to go yet. But I think I'm going to just save myself the embarrassment and you the ordeal of listening to me cocking up every 10 seconds. But there we go. Stopham Church has all those beautiful brasses, says Michael White. That's true. And I did do a lovely interview with Lord, whatever his name was, or Sir, whatever his name was. Carol Glue, good afternoon to you. Fart is Danish for speed. Thanks, Ben Reeve. That's very useful. And there we go. It's been fine, says Michael White. Well, he thinks... No, I've found it just unacceptable to read so appallingly. Lee Lawson says he thinks it's likely that the woman with the chum represents the family. Oh, with the churn. Bartolot, that was the name. Sir Bartolot. Was it Lord Bartolot? Sir Bartolot? Anyway, whatever it is. They don't half use some funny words and strange order in those old books, says Nigel Sadler. They don't half. They don't half. Anyway, I will rest my weary head and wish that I was dead. No, I didn't mean that. It just came as a rhyme, and I managed to get it out on time. I will be back on the Vogue Show a bit later on tonight. We have the lovely Julia coming on the show, and I believe we have a guest who's going to appear on his webcam, so that will be interesting. And I've noticed your Daisy light is working, says Justine Jones. Yes, I should say a new one arrived today. The lovely Jeff Kellison and Simon, who makes these things, have replaced the one that broke. And I'm very grateful. And in the Vogue Show, I'm hoping that we can promote Simon and his eBay channel or eBay shop, however it works, because he does all these neon signs and stuff. So if you want one, that's the best place to get them. Anyway, I'll talk about that in the Vogue Show. But anyway, for now, thank you very much. I shall go and hide my face in shame, and I will see you all again soon. Take care, look after yourselves, and thanks for coming today. I'll try and read better tomorrow. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.